Hi, Alistair Weaver here for Edmunds with the first fully independent instrumented test of the Rivian R1T. With Ford's F-150 Lightning still a few months away and Tesla's Cybertruck arriving, well, who knows when, Rivian really is first to market with an electric truck. We're going to subject it to the same industry-leading test that we applied to the Tesla Plaid only last month. Here at our test track, we're going to find out whether this 835 horsepower truck really can do 0 to 60 in just 3 seconds, as Rivian claims. Then we're going to subject it to the world-famous Edmunds EV range test and find out whether it can do 314 miles on a single charge, as the EPA claims. We're going to drive it on the road, on the track and in the dirt to find out whether this 75 grand EV really makes sense in the real world. And we're going to discover whether the gear tunnel is an act of genius or a Tesla yoke. Call to action, subscribe to our YouTube channel and sell your car with edmunds.com/sellmycar. You'd be mad not to. And now, without further ado, let's get on with it. We're about to kick off with the acceleration test, but first a bit of preamble about how we ended up here. Now, unlike some of the films that you might have seen on YouTube of Rivians bumbling from state to state, our video is not paid for by Rivian. We also turned down our invite to the press launch because we want to do our own thing under our control. This is a press demonstrator, but no one from the company is in attendance today. We have the truck for 2 days, not quite as long as we hoped or indeed asked for, but still enough time to do a thorough test, particularly as we're intending to work through the night. Anyway, enough of that, on with the fun stuff.
This is where we recently tested the Tesla Plaid, and where we test every car that secures an official Edmunds rating. It's normal asphalt, replicating the real world, and for those who care about these things, we're just outside LA at sea level. The R1T has 4 electric motors, 1 for each wheel, with a combined output of 835 horsepower and 908 pounds-feet of torque. For a bit of context, the new Ford Raptor produces 450 horsepower and 510 pounds-feet, so the Rivian has quite a bit then. Rivian says it's good for 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, but we never take their word for it. Now, before we hand over to our head of testing, Jonathan L. Farlan, a quick health warning. In most of our film you'll see a wet track because, unbelievably, it rained in LA. But we did manage to test the R1T in the dry before the heavens opened. It's just that our cameraman was still getting dressed. In other words, the numbers are legit. Over to Jonathan.
Okay, so we're getting set up for our acceleration run now. The Rivian has a bunch of different drive modes here, but the mode that we want is Sport. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that on the screen. I'm gonna do the usual foot on the brake. I'm gonna floor the accelerator and then let go and see what happens. Okay, here we go. Whoa. All right. Solid launch. A lot of wind noise. Okay. That's solid. You know, definitely delivers that performance EV experience off the line, so it just leaps off the line. This definitely feels like a fast truck. It's certainly the fastest truck I've driven if the numbers hold up. So we'll find out the results.
As always, it's going to take us some time to crunch the numbers, so while we're doing that, let's take a closer look.
Rivian has billions of backing from Amazon and even Ford, so don't think of them as a backyard startup. They already reckon they're worth over $50 billion.
Thankfully, some of that cash is reflected in the actual product. At first glance, it all looks pretty familiar, and maybe it's less likely to end up on a bedroom wall than a Cybertruck, but there are some really cool details. These headlights and the LED strip are likely to become a Rivian signature, and they look awesome at night. Kind of different without being too try-hard. A member of our test team, Kurt, put it really well to me this morning when he said that the whole thing feels like it's been done by a product designer, and that's different to how a car is normally conceived, where the car designer argues with the marketing department and the engineering department, and you end up with a bit of a fudge. Having said that, there is one detail that's grating on me a little bit. This is an all-new startup brand, so why did they steal a badge from Renault? The batteries are under the floor and the motors are with each wheel, so there's plenty of room in the front for a pretty useful frunk, which is also power operated, which is nice. There's actually 11 cubic feet of space in here, which is just about enough for my weekly shop. And just in case you were thinking of taking somebody hostage, there is a little release button inside, so don't do it, kids. Alongside the frunk, you also get storage space underneath the rear seats. And then, of course, there's the Rivian's pièce de résistance, the so-called gear tunnel, which gives you another 11 cubic feet of space. There's enough room for maybe a set of golf clubs or a junior stroller, or if you've got £5 to burn, Rivian will sell you a bespoke kitchen set for the ultimate camping adventure. Alongside the gear tunnel, you also get these handy fold-out seats that I was demonstrating earlier and can support the weight of a 300-pound person, so that should cover off most, if not all, US truckers. And what's more, it can act as a step, so you can stand up even if you're in tight jeans and jump into the bed.
Size-wise, it's somewhere between a mid-size and a full-size truck. It's 7 inches longer than a gas-powered Ford Ranger, but almost 16 inches shorter than the F-150 Lightning EV. It's also narrower than both, which I think's a good thing.
There's also some nice detailing here in the bed. You'd probably expect power points and anchor points these days, although these are really nicely designed. But how about this? You've also got an onboard compressor with enough pipe to reach each of the 4 tyres. Now that's really cool if you're venturing off-road into the sand or such like.
Payload and towing, I hear you say. At £1,760, it's competitive with the new Lightning, while its claimed towing capacity of £11,000 actually outpoints the Ford EV.
Also hidden from view under here is space for a full-size tyre, which is another feature which gives me peace of mind. The bed itself is 4.5 foot long, but it extends to 7 feet in total. Final thoughts on the bed? Well, you get a tailgate power down, but not a power up. So you do have to do at least one bicep curl. You do, though, get a powered bed cover. While that's doing its thing, let's take a look inside. There's also some clever thinking in here. I love this Bluetooth speaker, for example, which is automatically charged and emerges from the center console. Look, it even has a light. How cool is that? And while you don't get a Rolls-Royce style umbrella in the door, you do get a Rivian torch, which is, again, automatically charged by the car systems. Good, clever product thinking. I even like these pretty funky keys. So many manufacturers overlook these details these days. The rest of the cabin is actually pretty conventional, you know, seat screens, that sort of thing. There's actually quite a lot of Tesla influence in here, particularly in some of these minor control functions, probably because a lot of Rivian's engineers originally hail from Elon's army. Like Tesla, Rivian's developed its own software and won't be offering Apple CarPlay or Android Auto even as an optional extra, which I think is a bit of a shame, particularly when it comes to making calls and sending text messages, that sort of thing. And unlike Tesla, you can't currently get Netflix, YouTube, or any of the other paraphernalia. Speaking seriously though for a moment, it does look nice, and although at times it can appear a little slow and even a little buggy, there will be over-the-air updates. It's also nice to see built-in Spotify, so I can listen to my favourite country music. Would you believe I am a genuine country music fan? Love me a bit of Emily Scott Robinson. Let's talk quality, which, as we know, is a traditional bugbear of many a startup. And overall, it's pretty impressive in here, both in terms of the quality of the material choice. I love this wood and this fake vegan leather. Fake vegan leather, real vegan leather. Real vegan leather that didn't come from a cow, however it's best expressed. And it's not only good in terms of the perceived quality, it also seems to be screwed together pretty well. There's a couple of little bugbears. This wireless charging pad is a bit hit and miss, and there's a bit of trim on the door pillar that feels a bit loose, but overall, and I know I'm going to get hate mail for saying this is already better than the Tesla Model S Plaid we tested last month, or even my own Tesla Model 3. Good job, Rivian. I'm also a fan of this driving position. The steering wheel has plenty of adjustment, both up and down, so I can get it nice and close to me. You get a very kind of commanding view over the hood. Nice to see old school features too, like a proper speedometer in front of your eyes. And look, column stalks for the indicators, windscreen wipers. Old school tech working in the real modern world. Let's take a look in the back. So, to the rear quarters. Again, there's some nice detailing in here. I like these coat hooks with built-in USB-C charger. As you can see, there isn't like a huge amount of room. This seat's set up for me. I'm 6'4", so I know I'm at the extremes, but there's still less room than you'd get in, say, a full-size truck for the same or even less money. Another thing is that this vehicle, as we said earlier, is significantly narrower than the Ford Ranger or certainly the F-150. And while it's fine for two people, sitting three across the middle here would be a bit of a squeeze. Headroom, though, is generous, and this panoramic roof gives you a really nice sense of outdoor freedom and space. Another nice feature, if you open this armrest, you can actually access the gear tunnel from inside the car if you want to grab odds and ends. One thing that is bugging me though, and this is a bit of an aside, when I grew up in Europe, American cars had fantastic names like Viper, Firebird and Cobra. Rivian gives us the R1T, followed shortly by the R1S SUV. Having put so much thought, passion and detail into pretty much every detail of this vehicle, is that really the best they could do? Anyway, that's just my opinion. Let's drive it. Driving impressions, Rivian R1T in the wet, on the track. Here we go. What does it feel like to drive? Well, the answer is it doesn't actually feel that heavy. Like so many electric vehicles, the center of gravity in this thing is so low because all the batteries are under the floor and so are the motors. You know, you don't have that impression of mass that you would in a gas-powered car of this extraordinary weight. Actually, it feels pretty agile, and I think that impression of agility is helped by the driving position and this incredibly commanding view. It reminds me, in fact, of like an old Range Rover or something like that before they all became a bit trendy and fashionable. It does feel properly quick. I'm actually running around and let me just check what mode I'm in. Going into all-purpose. I'm going to change it into sport mode. So here we go. That is 835 horsepower. And maybe we're just getting used to these things, but it doesn't feel that fast. Seems crazy to say that we're just getting used to electric cars that will do 0 to 60 in like 3 and a bit seconds. Well, the first part of the throttle is actually left for the regen, so you have to give it a bit of a prod before the action starts, but after that it's actually pretty nice and linear. And the brakes still have that slightly artificial, spongy feel that you get from a lot of electric cars, particularly Mercedes' new EQS, for example. They just don't feel as linear and responsive as they do in a traditional gas car. But having said that, because the regen on this car, regenerative braking is considerable, you don't actually use the brake pedal very much. Certainly if you're away from a track like this and on the road, honestly, you'd almost never touch the brakes. This is very much a one-pedal car in the traditions of a Tesla Model 3 or Model S. So if you come to a stop, you just ease off the throttle and the car will decelerate pretty quickly as it tries to provide some electrical energy back to the battery. What else do we like? Well, the steering is good. I mean, this thing has very little body roll. It's really hunkered down on its air suspension. It is nice and responsive at the straight ahead. You can place it accurately on the road. You can tell the track's a little bit greasy. I've got the stability off. It certainly doesn't feel like a traditional big heavy truck. It's very well sorted for such a startup. Okay, I'm going to mess with it now. We're going to turn the ride quality into soft. I'm going to put it into all-purpose. I'm going to turn the regen to medium from the max that it was on before. I'm going to put the stability back on. Okay, so this is pretty much kind of default road mode. I'm having more fun in this than I thought I would. You know, a lot of these EVs are really good at going fast in a straight line, and much less good at going around corners. But you can tell this has been set up by enthusiasts, people who really know what they're doing, and I think they went out of their way not just to build a truck, but to build a really kind of engaging on-road vehicle. I know not many people are going to take it on a track like we are here, but you just feel it's that little bit of push and feed the power again, and away she goes. 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour, hard on the brakes, pretty stable. Turn her in, whoa, a little bit of front push. Honestly, for something that's this heavy, this size, this powerful, this is a hoot to drive. I think it's interesting, if you think about who's going to buy this car, it's probably not people stepping out of a traditional truck like an F-150 or a Ranger. It's probably people stepping out of more luxury vehicles, and I think Rivian's done a good job of providing something that will feel familiar to them. Okay, back to the pits. So our in-house boffins have finally crunched the numbers. Welcome back, Jonathan.
Hey, Alistair.
Jonathan, you have some numbers for us.
Okay, so this thing weighed in at 7,150 pounds.
Which is kind of insane. That's almost 2,000 pounds. What's a normal, like, full-size truck? 5,500?
Yeah, we're talking 5,500. You know, that's on the heavier side. So this thing is certainly a surprise. It's packing some serious weight.
I know it's got over 800 horsepower, but with that much weight to pull, it needs it. Now, Rivian are claiming 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. We did.
Drum roll. We did 3.5 seconds, and that's without rollout.
So we didn't actually match Rivian's figures, which is kind of unusual for us.
Right.
And we should say this truck is on all-season tires, but this is as kind of road-friendly as the R1T gets. There's nothing here that would necessarily trip those numbers.
I mean, I'm pretty confident in these figures.
On the skid pad, it registered 0.87 G, which is the best figure we've ever achieved for a truck. That makes the Rivian hugely impressive.
Quarter mile?
Quarter mile, it passed it at 11.9 seconds at 109 miles per hour, which is really moving. Surprisingly to me was how quickly it stopped. 60 to 0, 117 feet, which is frankly incredible considering how much this weighs. That's impressive.
This is kind of like Porsche 911 Carrera fast. It's Corvette fast.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a truck, it's actually right up there with most of the sports cars that we test before we get into like the really fast stuff.
This is faster than a lot of the sports cars that we've tested. So, you know, and the fact that this can go off-road, you've got so much comfort and utility is really a huge accomplishment.
Welcome to the future. Thank you, sir. Go back to sleep.
Oh, wait, hold up.
The other big part of our process is the now famous, or depending on your point of view, occasionally infamous, Edmunds EV range test. We drive every electric car on a real-world loop from our office in Santa Monica, testing how far they'll travel on a single charge. Notes from the test team include a ride quality that's good for a truck, if not quite up to the standard of the Ram 1500, and a complaint about excess road noise creeping into the cabin. The EPA claims a 314-mile range, but we achieved 317 miles. For context, that's the same as a Tesla Model Y long-range SUV. But, and this is a very big but, the R1T is the least efficient EV we've ever tested. Yes, we know it's a truck, but it still consumed 48 kilowatt hours per 100 miles, versus 27 for the Model Y. Only Audi's e-tron at 44 kilowatt hours comes close. And if you deploy all 800 horses, don't expect to get anywhere near these figures. It is a poor performance, but it's also worth noting that despite this, it's still cheaper to fuel than a gas-powered alternative.
Let's have a little cruise around our very genteel course. Some basic cameras which give us some views of the road ahead, but actually there's not a lot of variety here compared to, say, the new Bronco, for example. Anyway, that's your back, that's your front. You do feel it's still a little bit buggy. And then we can go into our off-road menu. We've got auto, nature awaits you. Rock wall, nothing can stop you, which, let's face it, is a pretty bold claim. And then you have the opportunity here to choose your different settings. This is ride height, 13.1 inches. Actually, you probably want to go up to max, which gives us the full 15 inches. Ride height change not possible due to overheated air compressor. This is new. Okay, so the good thing is we are at 13.1 inches. We have got plenty of height to get over this fairly mediocre course, but kind of interesting. There are still a few little gremlins that we're starting to see in this car, which, judging by the VIN number, is still in prototype trim, but even so. We are in rock crawl, which is allowing me to sort of gently modulate the throttle. It's coming over these little bumps. I mean, honestly, this is pretty simple for this vehicle. What is nice in an EV is just how quiet everything is. There is something that's kind of quite nice of being at one with nature in a car that makes no noise. If I was choosing one of these, although it's going to add even more to the extraordinary weight, I probably would go for the extended battery pack, because if I was serious about going off-road, I think it would just give me a little bit more confidence. Oh, cute little Monday afternoon drive over some rocks. The advantage of that air suspension is, in theory, it gives you independence at each corner, which should help with the articulation. So I am just going to have a little play. Here we go. One thing that I think is pretty cool, a little bit of gravel here that can demonstrate it, is you've got a very, very tight turning circle. Look at that. That's really impressive. And that's got to help you off-road in a vehicle this big. I think that's a key advantage of the motor at each corner and the whole way this car interacts. You're not restricted by physics in the same way that you are in a traditional gas-powered car. I'm wearing my full Dakar Rally jacket because we're hoping to take the R1T to the kind of off-road facilities we use for most of our testing in the rough stuff. But then Rivian wanted their car back, so we're kind of here making the best of a bad lot. Honestly, this course is really built for SUVs, and to be honest, it's a bit Michael Mouse, but we can talk about the hardware. The Rivian has independent air suspension, and that allows you to jack up the ride height to a maximum of 15 inches. Now, to give you some context, that's around 6 inches more than the F-150 Lightning, about 5.5 inches more or so than a traditional gas-powered F-150. You can actually see some of the hardware in here and the clearance that it offers. The other thing I really like about this truck, particularly compared to gas-powered alternatives, if you've got a flat underbody, because you've got a motor at each of the 4 corners, you haven't got any differentials or exhaust systems or anything else to hang down below. So that really helps you in the proper rough stuff. And if you could follow me here, Charlie, I mean, this is giving you a little bit of a sense of the articulation, which is pretty impressive. Honestly, we can't wait to get this into the proper boonies and see what it will really do. Bit frustrated right now. I wish we had this longer. So what else do you need to know if you're thinking of buying a Rivian? Well, firstly, you won't be visiting a dealer. Rivian, like Tesla, is trying to sell direct, and for now at least, that pretty much means a mobile shopping and servicing experience. How will that work in practice? Well, we don't know. This is a new brand with a new product, so everything is unproven. What else? Well, it is undeniably expensive, even if you allow for the possibility of a $7,500 federal tax credit. The R1T starts at $67,500. This one you see here is a smidgen under 75 grand. And if you add desirable options like an extra long-range battery pack, then you can soon see that price spiraling up to $90,000 plus. Now that's a lot when you consider that Ford's F-150 Lightning, which is also an EV truck, will start at just under 40 grand, although it'll be more expensive for the plusher version, shall we say. Tesla also originally said its Cybertruck would be around 40 grand too, but frankly at the moment, who knows? Personally, I think it's going to be quite a bit more. In short then, the Rivian is expensive, but it does at least feel like a luxury good. So who is actually going to buy this truck, and more importantly, should they? Well, its most obvious rivals in terms of price are gas-powered monsters like the Ram TRX and Ford Raptor, but honestly, I don't see people cross-shopping those. Nor do I think it'll be used as a work truck, because frankly, it's just too expensive and too precious for that. I think it'll actually appeal to a whole new generation of truckers, people who want to go surfing, mountain biking, or skiing. In other words, affluent techie types with a taste for adventure, sort of people who wear head-to-toe Patagonia. I think they're going to love it, and honestly, so do I. Welcome to the party, Rivian.